Man, that song always gets me super duper pumped up. Holy cow. If you're actually watching this on YouTube, though, you will have likely not heard the song because I just realized that for copyright reasons, I can't have it on there. So I will have to cut it out. So if you're watching live, one of the benefits of watching Office Hours live with the Wisconsin Veterans Chamber of Commerce is that you get to hear that cool song. Hi, everybody. My name is Adam Bratz. I'm with the Wisconsin Veterans Chamber of Commerce. This is our weekly Office Hours Live. Apologies for the late start. Holy cow, we had some technical difficulties, user error on my part. Totally my fault. But folks, I want to dive in because this is going to be a really rich, like, content and value filled conversation about more about the VA benefits process. This is a continuation of our discussion from last week. We've brought in another expert, and an expert is an understatement. Jane Babcock has a lifetime of experience helping veterans navigate many challenges, but definitely including the VA disability claims process. And we had a lot of interest in what we were talking about last week with that. So definitely want to continue that. We had a lot of follow-up questions. And so just very excited to bring Jane and her expertise to the table. What I'm going to do is just I'll introduce her, ask a couple questions, get things off the ground, and then I'm just going to start throwing my typical, like, follow us here and follow us here links in the comments. I won't bog you down with that right now here on the front end, but I will say follow us across all social platforms. We wear a little bit of a different hat on each platform, bring a little bit of different value, sign up for our newsletter, read our blog, become our best friends, blah, blah, blah. You know the deal. I'll share all the links in the comments, but you didn't come here to hear me talk. So I'm going to introduce our guest. Very, very, very pleased indeed to introduce Jane Babcock to the stream. Jane, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you today?
Very well. It's a beautiful day. I think it's just barely above freezing, and which is not going to last because we're going to get a snowstorm, and then it's going to be in the single digits and below for the next foreseeable future. Such is life in February in Wisconsin. But whereabouts are you located?
Well, actually, I live over in Manitowoc, but right now I'm over in another part of the state visiting with family.
All right. Well, very, very cool. I'm definitely jealous. I'm located in Greendale. I love Greendale. I love my house. Just a little bit sick of my house right now. So I'm ready to get out and go somewhere, but it's just so cold, I think.
I know.
We make it to spring, I think a lot of problems are going to be solved here. But so the VA benefits process, I'm sure that you could speak at great length on a myriad of topics surrounding VA benefits and claims and disability claims process. However, I just want, for those that aren't aware of you and your impact in the community, let's form this basis of credibility here. Give us kind of the 30,000-foot view of your experience, what brought you into service of the veteran community, and what you've kind of your career there.
Okay. Well, originally I joined the military just to go to school as an apprentice. Go to school through the military, do a year at AIT, and then get some experience to get out and go on with my life. Only I found that I missed the people. So I joined the reserves, but I got activated for a couple different things. Hurricane Hugo, San Francisco earthquake, did a recruiting tour, did other ADSW tours with the MI school and things like that. So 21 and a half years, got injured at training while getting ready to, the unit was due to deploy the next year.
Oh, no.
And so I basically went in and they said, you got your 20, sign here. You're in the retired reserves, go home, get your surgery, do your physical therapy and everything from the injury. No one said VA. No one told me that because it was line of duty, I could file for compensation.
Nobody said a thing.
Nope. So when I did.
Not surprised.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's a very realistic thing, especially in the Reserve and National Guard. You get injured, I finished my training in a cast, tore up my shoulder, turned out I blew out my discs in my neck, and finished the training, came home, and then I found out I'd blown out my discs in my neck when I found out that I couldn't feel my arm. And like I said, nobody said VA. So I signed into the retired reserves and went ahead and got my stuff done on my insurance. 4 years later, there was an ad for a county veteran service officer, and I said, "Oh, that sounds interesting. Let me go check it out." And when I learned what a county veteran service officer does and what a veteran soldier/veteran is supposed to be eligible for.
Right. Oh, I bet that was eye-opening for you at that point.
It is what made me driven.
So
I'm trying to make sure others don't get screwed over.
What did you learn? What information did you receive at that point that maybe there's a veteran in the same spot that injured in service, that they're not on the VA's radar and they don't know what's available to them? What did you learn? What became available to you?
Well, first and foremost, what I learned is the military and the VA are two separate entities. So when they tell you that going to the VA is going to take care of all your benefit stuff, not real. The Department of Defense, the branch of service, is totally responsible for all your military benefits as far as medical retirement or any of that kind of stuff. If you don't qualify for medical retirement, then you might qualify for severance. But what's going to happen there, severance is going to cancel out your VA compensation until you reach that same dollar amount.
Right.
Now, the most important thing to remember on the VA side of the house, first and foremost, the main rule of VA is you are eligible for compensation and free health care for any injury or illness caused by service that is a detractor from the quality of life and has a current diagnosis. That current diagnosis can be so important.
Right.
If you sprain your ankle in basic training and it's 40 years later before it gives you trouble, it's not because you sprained your ankle in basic training.
Right.
If you were exposed to jet fuel or Agent Orange or asbestos in the ships or overseas, because there's a lot of the buildings overseas had asbestos and or still have asbestos, and these guys are running around in the dust of those buildings being blown apart.
Right.
So.
Right. Oh, or the chemicals and water issues, burn issues, you name it, like respiratory issues you name it. There's a lot. Now,
you can't file for exposure to something. Guys will come in and say, well, I want to file for Agent Orange. Okay, so what is your illness related to Agent Orange? Well, I was exposed to Agent Orange, but exposure does not make you sick until you develop the illness. So you can't file for the asbestos. You can't file for the bad water. You can't file for Agent Orange because that's not impacting the quality of your life.
Well, let's say we have somebody that has they have mesothelioma, they have asbestos exposure, they have a current diagnosis, and they believe it was from their time living in military funded housing on base. They believe that there's a connection there. How do they make that connection, and how do they express that to the VA in a way that gets them the compensation that they deserve?
Not too terribly difficult. In fact, a young lady, I got her mesothelioma, her respiratory illnesses due to asbestos at Fort McCoy from the barracks.
Right.
So it's basically letting them know how you were exposed. When you file a claim, it should always include, this is what I'm filing, this is why I'm filing, this is how I think it's connected to service, and this is how it's affecting me today.
How would you suggest somebody files then? I know there are many different avenues. You can file yourself through your e-benefits portal, but there are kind of more advantageous ways to go about making that happen. And I see your eyes went wide. You're like, don't do that. No. Why should somebody not file themselves through their e-benefits portal and should seek out the help of a VSO or a DAV rep or a VFW rep or et cetera, et cetera?
Okay. Veteran Service Officer is what that VSO stands for. And as you see, it's scrolling on the bottom. Thank you, Adam.
You're very welcome.
These folks most of them are veterans.
Mm-hmm.
And so they speak your language. They understand the environments and things you were in. And they are going to ask you questions about other things you may not have thought about. There are other posts on the list that are being looked at for PFAS and all these other contaminants. Okay. So they're going to ask you about those kind of illnesses so that let's go ahead and file it now. And if later on that post gets put on the list, you're already in line.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You have to nudge the VA to go pull my file and relook at it. But
Right.
okay, that VSO is a person that has gone off to state training, federal training. They have to attend so many hours of training each year, online and in classroom. They have to take a 4-hour test. They have to get cleared by the VA, so they're not wanted for bank robbery out in Colorado or something where they might be trying to make you pay them. A VSO rep is paid by their local state or county government and or organization. So a DAV representative is the same thing as a county representative,
right?
Because the state and county guys can go out and cross-accredited. When I was CVSO, I had 5 national and the state. So I was with DAV, VFW, American Legion. So I could work a claim. I tell folks that are still in, if you know where your landing zone is, where you're going to go to after service, look and see who the VSO is there, find out who they're accredited with. Oh, they're accredited with the DAV, and there's a DAV guy representative on post that you can see easily. Then pick up the DAV guy, or if it's a VFW or the American Legion. If the same person is back home, it makes it so much easier for that warm handoff when you do get ready to go home.
So should you make that connection before you get out or immediately after you get to your final destination, after your final post-service destination? Should you connect with that person to just get your name on their file, whether or not you think that there's something wrong? Like what are some pre-separation steps that somebody can do to ensure that there's not a delay in them getting taken care of the way they deserve?
Well, a lot of times I spoke with folks that were still in when I was CVSO. They'd call and just, hey, I'm coming home and, it'll be 3 months from now. But I'm going through this med board process. Sometimes it helps to have a little input from the CVSO of what to expect during that process, what to say. When you are rated, it used to be that the medical exams were done by the military doctors and the VA really didn't have a lot of input. Well, now they're using the VA quite a bit for these exams, and that's good, but if you're eating ibuprofen like crazy and you go and the doctor says, can you bend over and touch your toes? And you're there for a back exam. Well, if you're eating ibuprofen and if you're like most military, sure, I can touch my toes. 3/4 of the way down, it might cause pain, but you go ahead and touch your toes.
Right.
Doctor says, no pain, 0% rating. When actually the rules of VA are that they are supposed to consider you in the untreated condition. So that's where you're supposed to.
That's interesting.
Yeah, when you come down to that point that you're starting to have pain, you should say, this is the point at which I'm in pain.
So it's not only
that's where the damage starts.
So that's interesting. So it's not only that a VSO understands the language, obviously the military language, and can understand how to convey your service record and the things that you've experienced, but they know how to speak VA, and they know how to speak comp and pen exam. They know how to speak medical examiner. So they understand how to bridge the gap or educate you on how to most accurately express what you're experiencing. Is that accurate?
Yes. And when there are conditions like, okay, you jump off the back of the deuce and a half, you twist your knee, you know that the TMC, or you're on another base because you're on a convoy, and you may or may not seek medical care, or you may just go to your unit's medic, and he says, eat Motrin and put ice on it.
Here's some Motrin and a Rip It, rub some dirt on it, good to go.
Yeah, and you never have an official record.
Right. Right.
Well, how are you going to convey to the VA? Well, the CVSO is going to tell you to get on your military email stuff, especially if you can do it before you leave service,
Mm-hmm.
or Facebook or all the other social medias, and look for your buddies, the folks that were on the convoy with you, that can say, yeah, he jumped off the back of the convoy, and that night his knee looked like it was, half the size of a watermelon.
So a personal reference then. So
Yeah.
that actually holds value. If somebody was like, I
Yes.
saw this thing happen.
Yep. And sleep apnea is traditionally something also, especially when you're exposed to stuff like burn pits and things like that, or other upper respiratory issues or throat issues and things like that. Because you can go in service and not snore or barely snore, and then you get exposed to certain chemicals and environments and stuff, and come out sounding like a Mack truck. But it's not till you get home and your wife's going, honey, roll over.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you've got to prove that it started in service. So the guys that were housed with you can say, yeah, when we first got stationed together, it was no problem. And by the time he left, we were all like, go sleep outside, buddy.
That's what happened to me. I got, it was shortly before I got out of the military. My wife told me, like, dude, you're not breathing. You are stopping breathing in the middle of the night. You need to get this looked at. Then I talked with a great mentor that said, before you get out of the service, you get that sleep study done. So I made it my mission in my last year to get the sleep study done. I actually had to go through 2 sleep studies because I just couldn't. I don't know if for how many people are familiar with this. They hook a whole bunch of stuff up to your face, and it's really hard to sleep. And they're like, sleep so we can study you. And it's just impossible. It's very challenging. So I had to go through 2
little wires.
Oh yeah, wires stuck to your head, and you got a big, Anyway, so I got my rating. My dad had sleep apnea, and then I have it bad. If I don't use my machine, I'm a zombie. But it was like 2 weeks before I got out of the military that I got it diagnosed, and they gave me my CPAP. And then I had a good VSO, Texas Vet Commission. I was down in San Antonio at the time, file it correctly. And it wasn't too long before I received my full rating for sleep apnea afterwards and I can't even imagine had I tried to go through that process myself. So I cannot express how important it is to have a VSO aid you through this process. And it's not a process that costs you anything. This is either a donor funded or a grant funded or a taxpayer funded operation here. Isn't that right?
Well, it's an employee situation. I was employed by the county or some places there's by state. There's only 30 states or 31 states that have county veteran service officers. Sometimes it's every county has an office, and sometimes because of population, like Utah, it's one person kind of central pointed for 3 counties.
Right.
But that's the best place to start is with your local government, because after all, they're available. They know what the local services are. Being when I was in Manitowoc or Kewaunee, when they opened up the homeless veterans shelter just on the Brown County borderline between Kewaunee and Brown, I knew that it was there.
Right.
So I could refer guys there, because I might not be able to get them into VA for 6 weeks.
Yeah. Oh, geez. So Wisconsin is one of those states. Is that correct? We have county VSOs, or maybe not for every county.
Every county.
So every county has one person there, at least, who is there to fully support veterans through this process, to be their liaison.
And Brown County, of course, has a lot more and stuff like that.
Yep.
But yes, there's always at least one person. And that person, again, goes through all the training and access and everything else. And they know their stuff. And if they are new on the job, when I first started in Manitowoc, the CVSO had been out of the office for a year due to a motorcycle accident. And his secretary was handling everything.
Oh, boy.
And I have to put it to her, because she really, was someone with no military background and everything else. And having this part of the job and then all of a sudden having the entire job, she did great. Now, sometimes, and she taught me, if you don't know what's going on or you're unsure, pick up the phone and call this guy Joe or call that guy. So I had my list to call up and say, hey, could you hang out with me on speakerphone while I go through this one with this guy?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to all of our secretaries and administrative assistants out there. For those of you that have either had a really good administrative assistant or needed one, if you know, those are the people that are really the guts of the operation. They're the nuts and the bolts, the gears and the cogs that are making something happen. So shout out to all of the administrative assistants and secretaries out there. Y'all rock.
Tara.
You giving a shout out? Okay, very cool. So I just wanted to mention really quick. It's crazy how 20 minutes flies by here, and we still have more time to chat about this, but I just wanted to mention to anybody that is watching. It looks like we got quite a few watchers on LinkedIn and a handful here on Facebook, I think. But if you have questions, and a lot of questions that pop up in this arena are hypotheticals, like, I had this, and then this happened. How do I connect with this with this, and who should I talk to? Really, the end answer to most of these questions are talk to your dang VSO and do it quickly. But I know a lot of questions pop up in this arena. So if you have questions, if you're watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, it doesn't matter. You're a veteran, if you're a military family member, and you have questions about this service connection, filing process and getting a claim and getting compensated in a way that you have earned and deserve, please throw it in the comments, and I'll facilitate those, and Jane and I'll chat about it and whatnot. And I want to make sure we're answering your questions. So I just wanted to throw that out there to anybody that's watching right now. We're doing this live. We're answering your questions if you got them. So feel free to throw them out there. If I've missed your comments for some reason, I apologize. We will get to it. But so Jane, what current challenges do you think our VSOs are facing, maybe in the face of this pandemic? How is the world? How has this world changed, or has it changed at all in the way that VSOs are supporting their veterans?
Well, they're doing a lot more, of course, over the telephone.
Okay.
So, but that's kind of a habit that we had before, anyway, or they had before. I would work with kids from Colorado, and Dad was going into the assisted living, and Dad lived here in Wisconsin. So they would have the information on the finances, and then I would take the paperwork to Dad. So some of it is that it has gotten better. Before I left, they started using electronic signatures. So if your VSO already has captured your electronic signature, they can go ahead and get that claim opened and initiated, and then you can follow up back with them as far as submission of evidence and things like that. They can go back and say, this veteran has suddenly gotten a terminal diagnosis. That expedites your claim. That makes the VA pull your file out of the stack and put it on top. Or that veteran just got a past due electric bill because he's got, shorter hours or no hours because of COVID. And so that, again, can expedite your claim. So they know all those little things. They can call the VSO liaison and say, I'm submitting this documentation showing that it's an expedite claim. And that liaison then works with the VA rater and says, okay, you need to pull that one back out of the queue and start working it right now.
Right on. So it helps to have somebody, to have that liaison. I think we keep getting back to that point, is like, don't try to do this on your own.
You could do it on your own, but odds are you're not going to submit it right the first time. There's less verification, checking of evidence, and this will make it stronger. Okay, your knee's been giving you trouble on and off for years, and you've been in and out of seeing the doctor, but what has it been like the last 2 years? Well, that's when we might suggest to them, you stop playing softball with the guys on Wednesday night. Get one of the guys to write why, because every time you rounded base, your knee would give out, or your spouse. The fact that you fell down the stairs 2 months ago. Those are things that won't be in the medical record, but they strengthen the case and condition of your current diagnosis.
So what do you see as a challenge? I mean, this is clearly like everyone should connect with their CVSO when they get out. Everybody should at least be on their radar and the VA's radar. Anybody that has any sort of even remotely tangentially service connected anything should connect with their VSO.
Always.
So there's
that's the cuckoo clock.
It's all good, no worries. But there's a gap there because you didn't know when you got out that that was the route you needed to take. And I'm sure there are a ton of veterans that are transitioning that don't know that that's the route that they need to take because they didn't have the mentor, they didn't have the guidance, they didn't have the training that told them, like, dude, you need to do this. So where's the gap between veterans and this valuable information? And what do you think closes that gap?
Well, so much of it is the generational thing. These are, folks coming out now. If you're coming off active duty, you're going to go through TAPS. If you're coming back from a deployment on the reserves or National Guard side, you're going to get a compressed TAPS, compressed to the point where you probably slept through it because your body clock is upside down.
Well, it's death by PowerPoint, it's
death by PowerPoint. Exactly.
There's 10 hours of PowerPoint a day and it's just drinking from a fire hose. You can't possibly retain all that information.
Right. Which is why it's so important to start that transition early. Don't wait till the last 3 months that you're in and then try and do it. And if you go and you take your physical 6 months out and something changes between now and then, make sure it's annotated. If you have surgery or anything like that, if you get treatment outside of a military facility, you need to bring those records and get them into your military jacket.
Yep.
And if you are going through mental health care treatment inside the military, you have to sign a separate release for that. That will not be disclosed in your standard medical record.
Interesting. So even if you're receiving mental health care from the VA.
Well, from the VA, they have it.
Oh, they have it.
If you're still in and you're going to mental health on post, or especially if you're going to the chaplain or someone else for your counseling, you need to get those records or input. The chaplain generally doesn't keep real records per se of his counseling, but he can write a statement of the fact that he's been meeting with you once every other week for the last 3 months or whatever.
Right.
And the fact that he's been, counseling you and these are the symptoms he saw. He can't diagnose you. But then when you come home, you get into the VA mental health care and they can look at those notes and diagnose you. Okay. You have to have that diagnosis. Going to the vet center is not a diagnosis. Those are counselors. Okay. But they can write all the notes, all the things that they observe and reasons why they believe it's connected to your military service. And then when you get that shrink, that actual doctor that can diagnose you, the guy that can actually write you a prescription, he's going to go, oh, well, here's all the information I need. And what do you think about this, that, and the next thing? And he's going to ask, a couple sessions and he'll have you diagnosed. So, and he probably will offer you medication and guys will say, oh, I'm not going to take any pills. Well, you know what? If it gets you back to the middle of the road and keeps you out of the ditch,
medicate if you need it.
It may be a good thing for 6 months or a year.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And for some, it's a lifetime.
It can be.
But if it keeps you out of the ditch, come on.
And that's okay too. I think, that is another conversation for another day is
yes, it is.
especially with, you find in a lot of male service members and male veterans, especially older school, male veterans is a resistance to even acknowledging mental health issues. And it can be a cultural thing, a generational thing. There are a lot of contributing factors, but definitely just please get the help that you need. I just shared this, Ron Christensen. Thank you from Oconto County, the Oconto County Veteran Service officer, Ron, thank you so much for sharing. He has a link he put on LinkedIn and I just shared it everywhere else. You can see it on the screen now. You can locate your Wisconsin County VSO or tribal service officer. There are VSOs for tribal entities in addition to our counties. I think that's an important thing to
Yes.
bear in mind.
Yep.
So please don't hesitate to reach out. If you're a vet, if you think that there's even you just need to get on your VSO's radar. So pick up that phone, locate your local one, grab that link, and ask your questions. And in addition to, what else does a VSO do for a veteran? In addition to, like, let's say, disability claims aside, are there other benefits that a VSO will make our veterans aware of when they reach out?
Oh, definitely.
Let's talk about that for a minute.
From the VA healthcare application, all the services inside there, glasses, hearing aids, all that kind of stuff, they're going to talk about compensation. They're going to let them know that down the road, if you start having major medical bills or you retire and you're living on a much lower income, and let's see whether or not you qualify for wartime veterans pension if you served during wartime. Or if you die, is your wife eligible for dependent compensation because you died from your service injuries or illness, or you, like the Agent Orange guys, all of a sudden massive heart attack? That's ischemic heart disease. So if they die of ischemic heart disease, suddenly, having never been to the VA, now we're still eligible to get her compensation or the spouse compensation, because sometimes it's a guy. And then if it's a war veterans pension program, the youngest pensioner that I put on was like 21, 22 years old.
I'm not even
Young
familiar
man.
with the wartime pension program.
Yeah. He came back from the sandbox. He hadn't enough money into the Social Security disability. You have to have so many quarters into the disability side and or Social Security side to get Social Security.
Right.
So he was tooling on his way to his new job, so he had no insurance on his motorcycle, and a guy pulled out of his driveway without looking.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Ouch.
My guy went over top, came down on the top of his helmet, split the helmet open, had a brain injury and compression injury to the spine.
Oh.
Family called me from the emergency room. What do we do? I said, oh, well, isn't it odd? I just enrolled him a few months ago into the VA healthcare system. So I called VA and I said, he's a 5-year automatic healthcare applicant because he came back from the sandbox, and they looked him up and they said, yes, what hospital is he in? They called the hospital, said, send all the bills to us. So they sent the bills to the VA.
How about that?
It was almost 2 months before he was stable to be taken down to Milwaukee, which has a premier spinal center. And he went down there, learned how to walk again and everything else, and no medical bills.
You know, it's amazing how many people don't know that VA healthcare coverage exists and is an option. I mean, I can tell you a personal story. I filled out my application for VA healthcare because I was told to do it when I got out, because I had service-connected rating. Like, you do that. I got a letter in the mail saying I'm eligible for VA healthcare. I looked at it. I'm like, I don't really know what this means. I already have healthcare. I'm good. I was paying insane amounts of like premium bucks through my employer for predatory, expensive, bare bones healthcare. And it wasn't until a few years later when somebody told me, like, dude, why aren't you going to the VA? That I looked into it. I made the switch. I realized that I had free comprehensive coverage from prescriptions to specialty and specialists, for everything covered for the rest of my dang life. And it's
everything related to an injury that's rated or illness rated, or if the veteran is rated 50% or greater.
Right.
Under 50%, they are going to pay copays, but they're like $8 for prescriptions and $50 to go to a specialist, like a hearing test or an MRI or something. But that's still a lot cheaper than what you're going to find on the outside.
Absolutely.
And even that can change if the veteran, say they retire and their income goes down so much and they are eligible for the wartime veterans pension. Guess what? Copays go away.
See, these are things that you need to know. And also your local CVSO will understand and have the beat on any sort of state, municipal, local, federal benefits that are available to you. I mean, did you know that in some states, depending on your disability rating, you are eligible for an exemption from paying property taxes. Did you know that in some states you get a free fishing license with trout stamps if you are a disabled veteran, or if you're just a veteran at all? I mean, from fishing licenses to property tax and everywhere in between, if you want to know what benefits are available to you by virtue of your service, you've earned these. These aren't a con. These aren't a this isn't a pity anything. This isn't a freebie. You earned this.
And education. Wisconsin is the best state for veterans, to be honest with you.
How many people don't know that Wisconsin has their own state GI Bill?
Correct. So if you come home with that bachelor's degree from your federal one, you can go for that master's degree.
And so can your family members.
If you're rated 30% or greater, yeah. Your kids under the age of 26, not married, and or your spouse up to 10 years after the last child turns 18.
That's insanity. And it's a great benefit. So once I finish using the entirety of my federal GI Bill benefit, I can continue my education through a UW, a public school, and I think it's being expanded to non-public.
The tech and the UW system, any state school. Okay. And they are looking at expanding it out to certain accredited schools outside of the system.
But my wife could, and my kids, if they go to a state school, covered.
Yep.
Yeah. So, these are things that people don't know about, and they should. So I think really the big challenge is information, the dissemination of information and getting the information out. And that's why we sure to appreciate what you do and our other VSOs. And we're doing everything we can to get the word out so that all of our servicemen and women and their families understand what benefits are available to them that they should absolutely be participating in and taking advantage of, because like I said earlier, they earned it. Yeah.
And Ron, I want to say hi. And the only reason I didn't separate Wisconsin CVSOs is because I know this goes out to a wider audience. And also, I haven't really communicated well with the Wisconsin CVSO Association to have an agreement to specifically say.
Right on. Yep, absolutely. So we have both. If you look in our comments, we had scrolling across the bottom a link for finding your local CVSO if you're watching from Wisconsin. For our Wisconsin friends, I also put a link for finding your Wisconsin CVSO. I encourage everybody, no matter where you are, anywhere, to do that. Keith just threw in there's a grant for nonprofit private schools. Wisconsin grant for nonprofit schools. I think that covers the difference between any sort of subsidy you would receive from state or federal stuff. It covers the gap there. If I believe that's accurate. But yeah.
Yes, and there are other grants available if a person loses a job, but that's kind of a difficult one in that you have to apply within a certain amount of time and you have to meet asset limits so that they know that, okay, sending you to school is going to change your career field or something. Absolutely. And of course, there's also the voc rehab. They now call it an vocational something or other and employment program through the VA.
VRNE.
Yep. So if a veteran, say they're a truck driver and they become diabetic because of their Agent Orange exposure, well, obviously you don't drive truck when you might pass out behind the wheel. So
you have to retrain.
Could get you back into school, could get you into an apprenticeship, could get you into an employer route. So there's all sorts of education benefits.
There's an insane amount of benefits. And I think the only bad thing about it, it's not that there isn't enough benefits. It's that there's almost too much to know all of them. And it's almost like information overload. So you need to have somebody help point you in the right direction. And that's where your VSOs come in. So, Jane, can't thank you enough. We'll definitely have to have you on our office hours again, because I feel like we could have talked for hours and hours and hours.
Cover pension and all the other stuff and all the survivor benefits and whatnot.
We'll definitely have to have you on the show again. I will keep you on the line here real quick and touch base with you afterwards. But for everybody else, thank you. Thanks to Jane. We had an extra message from Keith. The grant is the same application as the Wisconsin GI Bill. what the state will pay towards tuition is up to $2,000 in the school match. Thank you, Keith. That's good. That's good information. I love the community aspect of this live stream because everybody can say, hey, I know this. Hey, I know that here, So good stuff. Appreciate you, Keith. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your, and your veteran services at Concordia. How are we not connected? We should connect. Keith, look me up on LinkedIn. We'll connect. But thanks to Jane for sharing her expertise. Thanks to all of you for watching. We'll see you next week. Same place, same time. Make sure to follow the Wisconsin Veterans Chamber of Commerce across all social platforms. We are here for you. Your success is our primary mission. Find us at wiveteranschamber.org. Again, my name is Adam Bratz. We'll see you next week, Wednesday, 11:30 a.m. Same place, same time. Y'all have a great Wednesday and a great rest of your week.